Good evening and welcome to all of you. Thanks for attending. My name is Kim Abel, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, welcome to another in our series of candidates forums for the 23 elections. This forum is both in person and others are watching live on Zoom. We want to thank the Port Orchard City Council and City Government for allowing us the use of this meeting room and providing the technology for those of us who watch from home. The League would also like to acknowledge that our homes and gathering places in present-day Kitsap County are within the ancestral territories of the Suquamish and S'Klallam peoples, who have lived in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea and for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish and the S'Klallam live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855 and by the Point No Point Treaty of 1855. In this forum, we are going to focus on the candidates for the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue Commissioner Position 3. Before we begin, a quick explanation of the League. The League of Women Voters encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We do not support or oppose candidates, yet we work to get information about candidates to voters by conducting forums such as this. The League is a membership organization and depends on our members to organize and run these events. So we'd love for people to join us in our effort to preserve our way of government by encouraging informed voters and active citizens. With that in mind, we have invited these candidates tonight for your information. So please welcome, in the order they appear on your ballot this November, Micah Slava and Robert P. McGee.
Thank you.
We thank you for participating this evening and respect your willingness to commit to public service. And from now on, audience will have to hold our applause, even when they give a really good answer, because we'll wait at the end of the forum, we'll tell them how great they are. But if you have questions for the candidates, write them on cards. If you don't have one, just raise your hand and somebody will hand one to you, just a 3x5 card. And then we'll segue them into the other questions we have planned ahead. The questions came from people who saw that there was a forum coming and sent them in by social media to us. And then we also had a few that we went out and sought so that we could provide good information for the voters. So because we've made arrangements to record by Zoom, we ask everyone to turn off cell phones and put away any recording devices. We know there's no guarantee that someone won't capture some video or audio without our knowledge. However, we hope you will cooperate in our attempts to ensure that information from the forum is not manipulated to create false or misleading impressions or used for campaign purposes. So here we go. Candidates, here are the ground rules. You're going to be asked questions provided by the community prior to the forum. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer each question. Our timekeeper, Carol Larson, here in the front row, will hold up a 30-second reminder sign, and then she has a red stop sign. Just, we want to keep with the regular practice of stopping. So this way we can get the most questions in as possible in the hour we have. And at the end of the questions, I'm going to give you a final minute and a half for closing statement. And so with that, we're going to get right started, and we'll start right in the order you're on the ballot, and then we'll swap from every question. So Mr. Slava, what would you say is your leadership style, and how would that make you an effective South Kitsap Fire and Rescue Commissioner?
I believe that I am an example and assign a task and allow them to run with it. And having trained officers or firefighters in the field, I teach them the skill and expect them to follow in the path that they're taught and not regret to something or regress to something else and change.
Okay. And Mr. McGee.
My leadership style is one.
I think your microphone needs to be a little closer to you and be sure they're on. I'm sorry, so.
How about now?
That's better.
Okay, great. My leadership style is collaborative. I've served on the Chamber of Commerce board, and the nice thing about having a board like the commission is there's a commission of 5, and so collaborating to come solutions is really the way to do it. We need to have a balanced perspective on the board, and we need to make sure that we're coming to solutions that aren't one-sided. And so we want to ask the what ifs, so we can make sure that we're coming to conclusions that serve the community in the best capacity.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. McGee, you get the first chance at this question. How have fire departments evolved over the last few decades? Does the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue still rely on any volunteer firefighters, or is it mostly a professionally trained group this day? What's your information on that?
Well, the base of the fire department obviously is the trained professionals that we have. And, with the last levy, we're trying to increase that staffing to deal with the growth locally. We do have a volunteer program that we utilize, and there has been talk of really solidifying them a little bit more so they can be a more reliable resource for our professionals that serve every day. And I think that putting the effort into the volunteer program to really dial that in, so it's a little more of an effective force to help those professionals when we need them.
And how about you, Mr. Slava?
Well, could you repeat the question?
And you can ask that
Deep in
anytime.
thought.
It's got 3 parts to it, and I'm sorry about that, but it's a pretty interesting question. How have fire departments evolved over the last few decades? Does the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue still rely on volunteer firefighters, or is it mostly a professional trained group these days?
Having been with the agency for 50 plus years, I've seen it evolve from a pure volunteer agency to a career supporting the volunteer activities, to a career with the volunteers supporting, and now the career have taken over, and we have support from our volunteers. Our volunteers, we have 2 separate categories. We have suppression people, but it takes a lot of time and skills to get that, so they're suppression ready. And then there are the support people, support personnel, and they drive tenders, water tanks that carry water to fires where there's no hydrants in the area. We have air support unit and a rehab unit. They bring those to aid for the suppression volunteers and for the career. Our equipment has changed. When I started, my first fire engine was a 1946 Ford pickup, or a Ford fire engine. And now we're 22 Pierces. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Mr. Slava, you'll get this question first. It's a little long one again. Please give us an idea of the scope of the district's responsibilities. How many calls does the department respond to every year? And what is the breakdown between fire and calls for assistance? What trends do you see in calls from the public?
This year we had 12,700 calls, 700 plus calls. And 80% of those are aid calls where they're calling for medical assistance. And I think I looked at the stats, and it was 179 structure fires where we actually pulled the fire engine there and had several fire engines, fire guys with all their clothes on and going into a building and putting out a fire. So, and the rest are mainly call for help, burning complaints, illegal burns, any of those things, car accidents, any of those things where we're called to an emergency. And the trend right now, we have projected in the coming years, in the next 10 years, our calls should increase by at least 10%.
Thank you.
Which would put us over 20,000 calls.
Mr. McGee.
Can you repeat the question again?
Please give us an idea of the scope of the district's responsibilities, including how many calls does the department respond to every year? What is the breakdown between fires and calls for assistance? And what trends do you see in calls from the public?
Yeah, Mike answered the details quite well, and that's actually quite put out there, especially from the levy that was pushed out there as far as aid calls. They're on track to break that record for calls already this year. So call volume is definitely an issue, and it strains the resources of the district for sure. The other thing that needs to be taken into consideration too is they're being called out for a lot of mental health issues, and that's creating another strain and another avenue that has to be taken care of, which it makes it challenging to address. And a lot of those get pushed off onto the district from the police authorities, where they come out and respond to those. And so we need to make sure that we're taking care of that in a manner that works best for the district, and we're not taking on too much load that really isn't in our scope of work at the district. So there's a lot of challenges like that are presented to us. But as far as those volumes and stuff, yeah, I mean, as Mike alluded to, it is a challenge, and it's only getting worse with the growth that we're having here in South Kitsap for sure.
All right. On to question 4. It's only 4. What are your top 3 priorities over the next few years for the fire district, and why are they important to the community? And we'll give you that first chance, Mr. McGee.
Well, my number one priority coming in here is to make sure that I get up to speed. Mike's had the privilege of serving for 2 terms, and I'm coming in as a new person and a new voice to the district. So my number one priority is to make sure that I am knowledgeable. So when I get in there, I can get up to speed in 6 to 12 months, leaning on some of the expertise and wisdom of some of the other commissioners that are there currently. So number one, I've got to get there to make positive decisions as a commissioner. Number 2, which ranks right up there almost with number 1, we barely passed this levy here at 52% and failed the levy last November. We've got a balance issue with the community where we're not getting that support. We have got to earn back that trust of our community. We should be passing levies at 60, 70%, and we're just squeaking by at 52%. And my hat goes off to the district and the firefighters for getting that done, because if it wasn't for the efforts of those districts, that probably would not have passed. And the third is balance. I think we need a balanced commission. I think when we're heavily leaned towards people that came from the district, we don't have quite the perspectives we should have on our commission. And having some private sector folks like myself on the commission, I think provides a better perspective overall so we can make positive decisions.
Thank you. What will the passage of that levy lid lift? No, you still get to answer that question, Mr. Eslava. Thank you. I didn't cross your name off yet, so I know that too.
Okay.
The top 3 priorities.
Number 1 is our funding. Like he alluded to, we barely passed the levy. In past, we have tracked that levy, and it has been 60, 70% religiously. If you take into consideration the inflation that is affecting all of us out there right now, it costs you too much to buy gas, to go get food at the stores. You don't want to pay more taxes. And we're absolutely keen on that. The board is a diverse board. I'm the only one from South Kitsap that has been a commissioner and a firefighter with South Kitsap. The others are a road use maintenance person, and the second is a AT&T person or a US Bell person, and the third is a Bremerton firefighter, and the fourth is an elections officer with the city of Seattle. So our diverse board is there, and we all take very serious when we have to ask you for more money or to pass the levies to make us so we're a $2 fire department. And if that question comes up, I will address that and explain what the $2 fire department is about. Thank you.
Yes. What will passage of that levy lid lift in this last August mean to the operations of the fire district? How much more money will it bring in, and how will it be spent? And you get to start, Mr. Eslava.
So I haven't seen the numbers for how much money it'll bring in, but it's 41 cents. What our fire agency does is we are entitled to levy 2 levies. One of them is for fire, and we're entitled to maximum charge of $1.50 per 1,000 assessed evaluation. And then we have an EMS levy that you see our red ambulances running around all the time, picking up patients. 80% of our workload is EMS. That is the other percent, or 50 cents, that makes our agency a $2 fire department. 50 cents for the fire levy, 50 cents for the EMS levy, and both have to be renewed every 6 years. And when we pass a levy, if there is a significant amount of growth in that level that the levy had depreciated, then we can hire people. When you pass a levy, you can only hire people. When you pass a bond, you can only build infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Can you repeat the question again?
What will the passage of the levy lid lift this past August mean to the fire district's operations? How much more money will it bring in, and how will it be spent?
Well, I know sitting on the commission meetings, just to support Mike's statement there, that the budgets are still working on the final budget too. So we haven't seen those numbers come out yet, but it is significant. The last bond they tried to pass it at $1.25. They upped this one to $1.50, which obviously is going to bring us in more revenue. I know they're actively hiring and plan to hire at least 12 at the beginning of the year. I think the other thing that we have to pay real close attention to is there are folks retiring too. And so we got to make sure that we can bring on folks to fill those positions or bring them up. And then we've got to backfill those positions that we lose with retirees as well. So there's a lot that goes on with, it's a service. And so it's heavily labor intensive. And so the budgets and resources definitely fall heavily into that part of the budget for the district. And so we got to be mindful and be very respectful on how we do it.
Thank you. So we kind of touched on this, but the lion's share of the fire district's tax funding does come from property tax, which means that a home with a view pays a lot more than the same size home without a view. How can this be made more equitable? Do you have any ideas? Mr. McGee, you start.
Well, it is equitable per se based on the value of your home. So if you are in a home that is valued less, you're going to pay less. So I don't know if the question has a ton of levity to that, because that is why it's done the way it's done. So if you have a more valuable home, you pay a little bit more. How we can reduce these taxes is really, how do we do that? There's been talk about, running impact fees, which I don't know that the timing's right for that. Impact fees have gone through the roof locally here, and really the district comes down to budget and resources. How do we fund it? Where do we pull those monies from? How do we respect the community and not continue to go to the well? The battle's really with our cities and counties. It's not with the community. The community supports fire. If you ask anybody in the fire district, do you support the fire district? Absolutely. It's a service we have to have. How we fund that is the challenge, and it just comes down to money. And when the cities and counties want your money, they get it, and they have many ways to do that. The nice thing about levies and bonds, it's very respectful to the community, because the district has to go out and ask permission. And I do respect the fact that we get to do it that way. But our battles with the budgets and resources and the funding that we're losing to the cities and counties, and we're battling for those resources. And that's the big challenge. How do we do that so we can keep the cost burden down on the community?
Mr. Slava.
I certainly don't mean to talk down to South Kitsap residents, but we're a blue collar community. You need to justify the money that you're asking for. Short of justifying that, you are going to have a problem passing that levy. You buy ground and you don't take and work on it, or you don't do anything other than let it sit. You get the naysayers that are saying you're spending your money uselessly. When we built this fire department, we made fire stations where we had the road department was cleaning out ditches and taking that dirt or the stuff out of the ditches and dumping it on where we built one of our stations. We tamped it all down and built a fire station. We can't, our septic system doesn't work. So we had to buy a lot behind us so we could put a septic system on it. The way this agency functions, we are trying to catch up now from what we had done in the past. We had no real direction, no master plan. Now we're in a direction where we're growing and trying to figure out how and where we should put our stations, where we should put our people, how many people are we going to need to use to address the current growth that we're expecting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. How do you envision leveraging technology and innovation to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the district's operations and response times? Mr. Slava, you're right. You get to start.
Yes. We have standards set by the National Academies for National Fire Academy. They set standards for rollout, response on the scene to first water on the fire. These are set in pretty much in stone, and you have a set amount of time that you have to get out of the station, a set amount of time to respond rolling down the road in the fire engine, and then you have a certain amount of time that you're to get there. Technology, maybe technology is going to make our fire engines safer, make our ambulances more usable, user-friendly, as far as driving on the roads. The technology, you still have to have the person taking the fire hose in and putting the fire out. You still have to have the person operating the rescue tool to get the people out of the car that they've crashed in. You still have to carry those people that have backaches or chest pain in their houses. We still have to carry them out on a gurney. Still, it's a labor intensive job, and we're pushed right now to the limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
I think Mike's right on a lot. I would agree with a lot of that. I think one of the things that we can also capitalize on, though, with technology, bringing up that aspect of it, is how do we use technology to help our responses? You know, we've got things like Pulse Point that have come out and things of those nature that help people get to locations. Are there ways we can use technology to contact people on the way better? Are there ways that we can take the newer technology of fire equipment, make sure we're equipping our firefighters with that, so not only they're getting injured less, they're also able to do their jobs more efficiently and more quickly. The equipment they take in the ambulances to get people to the hospital, that technology advances all the time. We need to make sure, again, it always comes back to budget and resources. We need to make sure we're getting those budget and resources so we can equip our guys. One of the most important things to me as a contractor is making sure my men have the tools they need to do their job. And so the hands-on equipment that they have is actually the most important thing. Not that we don't want to have stations for our men, but you can operate out of a container ship if you had to. The most important thing is, do they have the tools to save somebody? Do they have the tools to get somebody out of a car? That is their bread and butter, is to make sure they can keep people safe with that equipment. It's super important.
You can answer at the end of another question if you want to respond to that. But
I'd like
this
to
is
respond.
Mr. McGee's time.
Oh.
And so when you get your 90 seconds, you
Okay.
can always add to something you've
Okay.
said before. Yeah. I'm sorry to have interrupted you,
No,
Mr. McGee.
we're good. Thank you.
Okay. On to number 8, and Mr. McGee gets to start this one. South Kitsap's demographics include many minorities, women, and other protected classes. How important is it that a board and its employees reflect the communities it serves? How would you rate the fire district's success in that area?
Can you repeat that one more time?
I
That was a
can.
heck of a question.
The question is really, how important do you feel it is that the board and its employees reflect the community it serves, recognizing that South Kitsap's demographics include many minorities, women, and other protected classes? And how would you rate the fire district's success in being able to reflect that?
I think the district reflects it well. The professionals at South Kitsap Fire are second to none. They're some of the most professional people I've ever met, and I know that they take their jobs very seriously. As far as the demographic and how it affects the community is the boss, and so ultimately we answer to the community. The commission answers to the community, and as well as the district. And so when we talk about who is in charge, the community owns the fire department, and they are ultimately in charge. And so we have to always be sensitive to what they want to do, the budgets and resources they're going to allow us to have outside of the budgets and resources we can try to go procure in the way of grants and other types of funding means. But ultimately, we do have to respect everything they tell us because they are the boss. That's unequivocal.
Mr. Eslava?
I agree. The community is the boss, but they trust us with the ability to come up with grants, funding, evaluate impact fees, in fact, evaluate benefits charges, and to allow us to offset some of the monies that we have to use in our levies and our bonds, or where we have to come back and ask you. The fire service has changed so much that the people that are out there are there. I had the first female firefighter in South Kitsap. She was my employee. I was her lieutenant. She was my paramedic. So I respected her and she respected me very much. We worked very hard together, and we have multiple females, minorities in our staff, and they are very well trained and very competent at their jobs. And we're very proud of that. And we have a human resource department that makes certain that we do that and do it properly. And if we're ever lacking, we train it and get them so they know what they're doing. We had an incident in the past, and that person is no longer with the agency because he didn't quite understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Most of the fire district's employees are unionized. What is your experience working with union workers? And tell us the role you would play in maintaining excellent labor management relations. And
Well, actually, I'm still a union member. I'm a retired union member with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue. So I get along very well with the union, even though at times we bang heads because they expect change too fast. Change is going to come, but we have to be able to pay for it. And at the end of the day, the things that they're asking for cost money, and we don't have the money to do that. I came from this agency when we didn't have any money in the bank in case a fire engine broke. We had nothing. We had to do without a fire engine or put up an old, outdated fire engine and use that as a first out engine because we couldn't afford a replacement fund. Now we've created a replacement fund. We've created a replacement fund for ambulances, fire engines. And since I've started, we have gone from $450,000 for one fire engine to $1.1 million for our next fire engine that we're ready to buy right now. So the times are changing and the money out there is, I mean, the union I get along great with, and we see head to head on a lot of things, but other things, hours, wages, and working conditions that they can negotiate, we deal well with that with our negotiators. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Yeah, I am currently still a union member myself in the private fire industry. I'm also a signatory contractor. I hire out of the union hall as well. So I definitely sit on both sides of that table when it comes to unions and negotiations. And to Mike's point, yeah, they can be interesting and they can get heated at times. And so it's important to keep a level head in those negotiations. They're an important part of the district. We need them. They're well-trained staff that we have to have, but at the same token, resources are limited. And so we have to be realistic as commissioners to make sure that we're advocating on behalf of the community with the monies we do have. But we also need to make sure when you get into negotiation, I always like to say, you're always going to find that spot where you're both just uncomfortable enough to be happy with it, because you've got to find that middle ground. And sometimes you have to do that, but you also have to be willing to say no sometimes and say, we do not have the funds for that. We are going to have to look another way to try to figure out how to get this, what they call a CBA, which is a collective bargaining agreement, to get that done. And they have either 2 or 3 collective bargaining agreements right now. And so it's interesting when you look at how the agreements are set up and the nuances of them and just the complexity of them. And you just have to get in there and kind of dive into the weeds on those things to negotiate them.
Thank you. All right, we're going to kind of follow up on that. This question is, the firefighters union will more than likely endorse one of the candidates. What are your feelings as a candidate about receiving their endorsement? Mr. McGee gets to start. Sorry.
Well, actually, they already have endorsed a candidate. They've endorsed my opponent, Mike Eslava. It's an interesting one. Getting the endorsement by the union is great. They have their own agendas and needs. And, one of the things I love about firefighters, love it. They are the most loyal and people to each other and to back each other up. They have to serve in fires and they have to help each other out in those deals. I love that part of the fire service. I always hesitate, though, to have it on a commission. That loyalty to the district, we've got to be careful with that. We need to make sure that we're loyal to the community first. I feel that a commissioner's role is to advocate for the community first, and then advocate for the fire district when it's appropriate. And we have to evaluate those times when we need to do it. So I think it's great that he's got that endorsement, but I'm not running to represent the union. I'm running to represent the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Eslava.
I was endorsed by the local, but please have no doubt or no question in your mind. I'm a candidate for fire commissioner, and I am the candidate that my phone number, my email, everything to contact me. In fact, the people out in Olalla, when we started this last levy, I gave them my phone number to call me if they had questions. And I got 3 calls, and I invited them to the commissioners meeting, and we solved that issue, and they got on board and supported the campaign for the levy. So the local, let me clear this up right now. My first loyalty is to my community, the people that elected me. I represent you, and I am not ever going to change that. I also represent the agency, South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, but with that agency, it comes South Kitsap professional firefighters and the staff work, or the shop, and everybody else that's the union in that agency. I support them also. but my first loyalty is to my community. Have no doubt about that.
Thank you. So fire prevention is a crucial aspect of a fire department's responsibilities. How would you promote fire safety education and outreach programs in the community? And Mr. Slava.
We just hired a community risk reduction specialist, also fire prevention specialist that does PR stuff in schools, does fire prevention activities with schools, that arranges and coordinates CPR classes, first aid classes, in-home safety inspections, smoke detector installation, check your home for safety. We are top on that level. We make sure that our community, we are invested in you. South Kitsap Fire and Rescue is invested in you. We want you to be safe at home and safe on the roads. Because if you're safe and you take care of yourself and you're not injured or not hurt or your house isn't burning down, we don't have to come and see you other than come and see you on the street or at the store when we're getting our groceries. Thank you.
Mr. McGee.
Yeah, prevention's it's a huge factor. And in fact, I think prevention can even be expanded to try to help with this call volume issues. You know, a lot of these calls they go to, they're not frivolous, but you know, grandma can't open her pill bottle type stuff. And that takes up resources from the district when they have to respond to calls like that. And so I think if we get out there and use our prevention team to address things like that more, to Mike's point, they do a lot of that now with smoke detectors and things of that nature. I love prevention. I think it's an underutilized aspect of the district, even though they do a lot of it. But I think it's something that can actually be used more to help with a lot of the things we're dealing with. Education is key. Education is hugely important, and the more we can educate the people at South Kitsap with the fire district, how it operates, the things they do from them, the things that they can do, so they're not wasting the resources of the district. Of course, we're not going to say it like that, but those are things that we need to utilize. They're just extra important. It's a big deal for me, prevention.
Thank you. This past summer in South Kitsap, it was one of the hottest and driest on record. What would you want to work on as a commissioner to deal with those challenges in the district? Mr. McGee, we'll go with you first.
That comes back to education again. I have Pulse Point. I'm sure Mike does too. I have never seen so many vegetation fires in South Kitsap. It's been crazy for these guys responding to these. A couple of them pretty significant ones, like the one out in Olalla. We got to make sure people are abiding by the burn ban rules and firework rules, because when they're not, it just causes complete chaos for the district, and they're responding to fires all over the place. And as Mike, we discussed earlier in the interviews here, EMS is our big deal. That's our biggest call volume. And so when we're having to go respond to fires that are being started inadvertently through just foul play or just, accidents that shouldn't be happening, that takes away resources from other avenues that really need them. We got to make sure people are abiding by the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 bird bans. It's important. And it also impacts people's homes. When these things happen, we may be fighting a house fire after the brush fire starts, and we need to try to avoid those types of accidents happening. So education all the way is part of that prevention aspect.
Mr. Slava?
What we have is we have our firefighters that are trained as red card, which means they can go actually fight wildland fires. And we have crews that we send out with fire engines when they have a major fire out of state. As far as out of state, we go to Eastern Washington regularly with one of our brush trucks or one of our fire engines, whatever they need. But in the same respect, when we need something like that, when we had our tornado, they came in and helped us. That tornado that lasted a week, we had help coming in from everywhere. So it's kind of a mutual aid thing, but the state funds everything like that. But to take and train our people to do the firefighting, that the initial knockdown and get DNR or whoever is controlling of the land. Department of Natural Resources has control over the properties. One of them that borders up against me in Olalla there, where they were going to put the high school off of Burley Olalla. That's all state land. And so when there was a fire in there right up against the back of my property, helicopters were in there. They were dropping water on us guys on the ground. But the guys need to know to knock it down and get it down instead of it's going to blow up on them. We're not in that area yet. Thank you.
Thank goodness. All right. Well, this is the last question before the closing remarks. So just so you know where we are. And we'll start with you, Mr. Eslava. What do you see as the role of the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue Commissioners and local and state legislative activity?
The state legislative activity that we do, we go down there and we lobby our legislators for fire-related issues that will benefit our community, specifically Kitsap County, because there's all of the fire departments get together and we go to Olympia with the Board of Commissioners. We lobby the legislators, and if you've ever been down there lobbying, yeah, we're gonna do that. And at the end of the day, nothing happens, but we're down there pushing and talking and everything that it takes to get us to do that. However, we do lobby as Kitsap County's commissioners, South Kitsap's commissioners, and Kitsap County's fire commissioners, and the state of Washington's Commissioners Association. We lobby the legislator as often as we possibly can whenever something comes up that is of interest to the fire service and we support strongly. We will go down there and actually campaign and lobby for it. And a lot of the fire chiefs go down there and speak in hearings for that. So they do support those, and they do look forward to benefits from the state, which are hard pressed coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee, how about your answer to that?
Can you repeat the question? I
What do
thought
you
I missed
see-
a piece of
That's
it.
okay. What do you see as the role of the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue Commissioners and local and state legislative activities?
Well, yeah, we need to make sure, the community takes the brunt of the burden financially for this. And so we need to make sure that we're pressing our legislators to not only pass policies that will help our district in our community, but also so they don't pass policies that hurt our district in our community. And I think that one almost many times is more important, because policies get passed that do not favor the district. Even locally here, and I understand they're probably going to be repealing it, but the city of Port Orchard passed a policy for long-term property tax exemptions and really didn't engage the district. And frankly, we should have been engaging and getting in front of it as well. I want to make sure that we are being proactive at the district and not reactive. When we're reacting to bad policies or bad legislation that's coming out and we're behind the eight ball, we're not in a position of power to be able to combat it or support it, depending on what that legislation is. So being proactive is huge on this stuff, and it's hard to do. There's so many different things that affect the district, from the city to the county to the water districts to the state legislature. So it's difficult to do, but we've got to be as keen on doing it as possible to make sure that we're not getting hurt, or conversely, we're getting the things we need to help our community financially support our district.
All right, thank you. And with that, you get to have a final closing statement or something you didn't that you didn't say before, or your last message to the voters on why they should vote for you. Whatever you want. This is your 90 seconds. I'm not asking a question, and Mr. McGee, you get to start.
Well, thank you for that. Thanks for the league for putting this on too, and inviting the commissioners. I don't know what your experience is, Mike, been in the past, but typically you don't see the commissioners get invited to a lot of these candidate things. So I think it's really important that that got done. I think people need to know what the commissioners do. I think they need to know, the budgets that they work with. It's an important position in the community. It really is. I bring a different perspective to this. I commend Mike for his service, and I believe his way forward is honorable. But I just bring a different perspective to the commission. I come from the private sector. I come from a business management sector, and I come from a union and signatory contractor union perspective. So I just think I bring a set of skills to the table that are different than Mike's, and it's really up to the community to decide if they want that change on the commission or not. I think that from the conversations I've had with many people in the district, talking with them, they want to see some change, and I think I can bring that to the commission. And so I just put my best foot forward with Mike in this campaign, and have appreciated chatting with him at all these events. He's a nice man, and I look forward to see what happens in November. And I hope I earn the trust and the support of the community to earn their vote.
Thank you. And Mr. Eslava.
I am Mike Eslava. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters. This is truly a privilege. I've never got to do this, and this is my third term. So I just would like to let the community know that I've been there for 50 plus years, and it's not something that you can take lightly because I've been at both ends of it, both ends of the scale. So I'm not partial to the union. I'm not partial to the volunteers. I'm partial to my community that elects me and supports me and that has my information, my personal information, and can call me or stop me on the street or stop me in the store and say, what's going on? Why did you do this? And have a face-to-face conversation. I don't hide from anybody. If you have a question or you disagree with my vote, talk to me. Or if you just want to know what's going on, there's easy contact with me. I have always supported the community in that. I've been part of the Easter breakfast. I've been part of the Help Firefighters Give Burns a Boot for the Northwest Burn Foundation for burn injured kids. I've been to the volunteer associations with their spaghetti dinners, their Easter egg hunts, every single thing. That's part of being a community person, that you are out there not just when it comes election time or when a levy comes up. You're out there shaking hands and talking to people and just finding out how they're doing. Because this campaigning stuff, it's fun, but it's not. I'd rather just talk to you than I would. Hi, I'm Micah Slava. I'm running for commissioner. I would much prefer to just talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Slava. And with that, a final thank you to our great audience, right, in person and on Zoom, and the City of Port Orchard government again, and the candidates who are here to assist voters make their decisions this fall election. I really do appreciate you stepping forward and saying yes to our forum this year. And I really hope that you both have had a great time. So I hope you had a great time and you think they did really well, because this is our chance. And for your friends who couldn't be here, please find the link to this recording on our league website, which is lwv-kitsap.org. And so there's a good chance BCAT will also televise this Zoom recording, and you can find that on their website as well. And so that's for people who might not have a great internet connection. They could see it perhaps on their local television. And be sure, once you get your ballot, you take it to a drop box. And as my previous person said, do it early so that you don't forget. And this concludes our forum tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.